kicking off a new sermon series called The Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount, that's right. And if you're new to all of this, the Sermon on the Mount is one of the most famous sermons in the world, preached by Jesus himself. And you can find it particularly in chapters 5, 6, and 7 of Matthew's Gospel in the New Testament. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at this incredible sermon that Jesus preaches. And we're going to be taking different sections of it and thinking about it over the next few weeks. And this morning, it started with a section called the Beatitudes. Can you all say Beatitudes? Beatitudes. And as you well know, it comes from the Latin beatus, which means blessed. And previous versions of the Bible were written in Latin. And so it had this word beatitude in the Bible at the beginning of this Sermon on the Mount, because Jesus is saying, blessed are these people, blessed are these people, blessed are these people. And that word blessed actually means happy. It means happy, it means joyful, it means blessed. There you go. So the definition is it means blessed. And actually, this really happened. So the Sermon on the Mount really happened. And here is Cara, my wife, and me, and we're in Jerusalem. This was quite a few years ago now, but we went on a trip to the Holy Land, and we went to the Mount of the Beatitudes. And up in the Mount of the Beatitudes, where Jesus is thought to have given this big sermon, is the chapel of the Beatitudes. And these sayings, these Beatitude sayings, are up on the windows in Latin. And I'm not going to try and read it, but this one says, blessed are the poor in spirit, for they will, let me just check my Latin, I think, for they will inherit the kingdom of God. Yes, there you go. So I think that's what it means. So it's a real place. It really happened with a real Jesus preaching a real sermon. And today I'm going to try and explain a little bit about this as we start this series. But before we do that, I'd like to ask a very important question, which is, who actually had some New Year's resolutions? Did anyone put your hand up? So I'm going to do a little poll. I want you to be honest. Who's got some New Year's resolutions? Okay, now, gently put your hand down. It's important that it's up at the moment. Gently put your hand down if you've kind of blown them already. Okay. Oh, well done. There's quite a few people doing pretty well. But a recent survey said that a third of people set New Year's resolutions, and 2/3 have kind of broken them or given them up by the end of January. Okay, next question, little quiz. What do you think most New Year's resolutions are kind of to do with? Like if you had to say, you know, they're to do with this. Health. Anything else? Health, wealth. I don't know what else rhymes with health and wealth. You're absolutely right. So I've got a list from a survey, very recent survey. It is in the following order. Eat healthier, exercise more, drink more water. Anyway. Who, by the way, has those really weird water bottles that tell you how much to drink? Yeah. Actually, they're not weird. You're really normal. It's okay. Sleep better. Who monitors their sleep? Anyone monitors their sleep? And yeah, a few of you. Okay. Stress less. Be more organized. These are the top New Year's resolutions. And there's nothing wrong about them. There's nothing wrong. They sound like good things to me. But I think what's interesting about New Year's resolutions is that they tell us something about what we think the good life is. They tell us actually what we value as being the good life. That if we can just sort out these things, we will be living the good life in 2026. We'll be living what life is all about. So what's interesting about resolutions is more what they reveal. It's more what they reveal about us. And what's striking is that Jesus starts this Sermon on the Mount not saying, blessed is the person who uses a water bottle that tells you how much to drink throughout the day. Blessed is the person with a sleep monitor that tells you that you had 3.5 hours of REM and that you can now celebrate. No, No, he doesn't. He says blessed, and the word literally does mean happy. Blessed are those who mourn. I tell you what, I'm going to have a resolution this year to mourn more. You know, that's it, because apparently that's going to make me happy. Blessed are the meek. Oh yeah, I'm going to be really meek this year. I can't wait to be meek. Kind of rhymes with weak, you know. We don't say, my New Year's resolution, I like this one, is that I'm going to get persecuted more this year. I'm really looking for that, because Jesus says, blessed are the people who are persecuted. And so when Jesus starts this Sermon on the Mount, before he gets into all the things about how to deal with anger, how to deal with lust, how to deal with worry, how to deal with money, he starts by completely subverting what we think the good life is. He starts by completely turning it on its head and saying, you think the good life is those things. But let me tell you right from the outset, the good life comes, the blessedness comes in these really terrible things. And I want to be clear, not because the terrible things themselves are good, but because of what happens through them. Because of what happens through them. And I want to say at the beginning of this year, this is good news. Because there's a lot of you and me who are going to mourn this year. Something maybe you're mourning right now. I've got a friend whose wife died between Christmas and New Year. And what can I say to him? Actually, this is good news. I can say, you know what? For some reason, you're going to be blessed. Not because you've got it all together, not because you've got life sorted, not because you've kind of got a perfect night's sleep, but in that brokenness, in that broken place of being persecuted, of feeling weak and meek, and in that place of mourning, God is going to meet you. And so today, I want you to be encouraged that in one way, no matter how bad life gets this year, and maybe it will get bad, I don't know. Being a Christian doesn't protect you necessarily from bad things happen. The good news is God is there with you. And therefore you're blessed. And so actually Jesus, right from the start, is dismantling our version of the good life and is replacing it with something completely different that sounds utterly crazy to us. He's saying the good life is not found in looking better, being fitter, being more impressive, being more in control. It's found where God is near. It is found where God is near. And actually, God is near to those who are struggling. And so this is good news for you today as well. If you're struggling in any way, God is nearer to you than maybe someone who looks like they've got it all together. So every January, we set out to secure the good life by effort. We try hard, don't we? We try harder. And many weeks into, or not many weeks into January, we often actually feel a little bit disillusioned. The resolutions are gone. We're not quite sure what happened, but we just didn't quite hold it together. And this sermon is about how we then go on and live the good life. But I want to just say this from the outset, that the hermeneutical key, I want you to all go, ooh. The hermeneutical key, as theologians call it, which is a fancy way of just saying the lens that unpacks the whole package, the whole passage, and the whole sermon, the lens is right in the first verse. And it says this: blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. We need to understand this line to understand the whole rest of the sermon. Because Jesus goes on to talk about all sorts of things: anger, lust, revenge, enemies, generosity, prayer, money, worry. And if we don't understand this, we'll get it wrong. But the actual Sermon on the Mount as a whole has been highly praised by people who wouldn't even call themselves Christians. This gentleman, anyone know who this is? This is Harry S. Truman, the 33rd President of the United States. He said this: "I do not believe there is a problem in this country or the world today which could not be settled if approached through the teaching of the Sermon on the Mount." Even Gandhi said this. He was speaking to the British Viceroy of India, Lord Irwin. He said, "When your country and mine get together on the teachings laid down by Christ in this Sermon on the Mount, we shall have solved the problems not only of our countries, but those of the entire world." So this is such important teaching. It is life-changing, and that's why we're going to spend the next 6 weeks looking at it as a church. So are you ready? Are you ready, church? Are we going to do it? Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. I've been trying to live out the Sermon on the Mount since I became a Christian. And we read it as a staff team this week. We read through Matthew 5, 6, and 7 in one big row. And at the end of it, we were like, oh, man, how on earth are you meant to do that? That's like, even if you look at someone lustfully, pluck out your eye. Even if you think about this, do this, and you think, gosh, it's so, Frederick Scott Oliver, the 19th century political writer and businessman, said this: "No politician has ever yet been able to rule his country, nor has any country ever yet been able to face the world upon the principles of the Sermon on the Mount." The teaching is so hard. It's like Jesus is saying, here's a picture of how things would be if I was truly reigning and ruling in your life. This is like the vision, but it's so hard. It's so difficult to put into practice. And therefore today, I'd love to share how to do it, because I've found out how to do it. I've worked it out. So I now know the answer, and I'm going to share it with you today. But first thing, I'm going to tell you the 2 ways not to do it. And the first way is taking control. It's taking control. That's the first trap, where we kind of think, 1st of January, I'm going to try harder. Anyone done the trying harder thing? Anyone tried harder? Yeah? Let's just try harder. If I just grit my teeth and really work hard to put this teaching into action, I'm going to take control, and I'm going to do it this time. How many people have started the Bible in 1 year and made it to kind of roughly the end of January, and then you're like, oh, I can't do it anymore. I can't. And I'm even 10 days behind already. I've now got to dedicate another year just to catch up on it, And the problem with taking control, especially in areas like anger and lust and worry, is that there's a saying, what we resist persists. As we try to get better at something so often, it almost feels like as we try to press the accelerator on trying harder, the brake is coming on at exactly the same time. We say, I'm not going to worry this year. Actually, I'm worrying about worrying. Oh, no. And now I'm worrying about worrying. And suddenly it gets worse. And I suppose maybe a question right now is, what's the area of your life that you're just trying to control? Or you're trying to think, I'm just going to try harder. I'm going to work harder at this area of your life. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's money, maybe it's sexual temptation, maybe it's just something else. Because I believe Jesus is wanting to give us another way this morning than just trying harder. So if that's the first trap, what's the second trap? And I gave you a sneak preview. Let's have the slide up. The next trap, losing control. Now, this often happens after taking control. You've tried taking control for many years. It's not worked. And now you think, Actually, I can't say that word, can I? Now you think, dash, I'm not going to bother anymore. You think, I've tried it. You know what? The whole Sermon on the Mount thing, I think that's just a picture of heaven. That's how we'll be in heaven. You know, I'm not going to bother, if I happen to have a good day where I don't shout at someone, then great. That's awesome. But overall, let's just lower the bar. Let's just lower the bar. You know, c'est la vie. I'm sure there's another French expression I could use. I don't know. But and we think one day when I'm made perfect in heaven, I'll be able to live this kind of amazing teaching. But it's kind of just more an ambition. Let's not get hung up on it. And the problem is, if we're Christians, we just sort of start living a bit of a life of mediocrity. It's kind of like slippery slope. I've tried trying, that didn't work, so we'll just go with the flow, and before we know it, we're just not living how Christ wants us to live. And there's actually nothing distinctive about being a Christian. We're just living life, doing what feels right. And so if you've tried one or two of those, the taking control, the losing control, we need to think about what to do next. And this is where that first beatitude really comes in. And I said it was the hermeneutical lens through which to view everything, which said, blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit. What it's basically saying is this: you're blessed when you realize you can't do it. When you realize, I can't do this by myself. I can't. I've done the trying harder. I've done the whatever. And I've realized I can't actually do this. I've got a poverty of spirit. I don't have what it takes, actually, to live this sermon. I don't. And I don't. I want you to know that. And we don't. And here's the thing. That's not the problem. That's actually not the problem. The problem is thinking that we're supposed to be able to do it by ourselves. That's actually the problem, thinking we're supposed to do it. We can't do it. It's not because we're useless. It's because we were never meant to do any of this alone. We were never meant to do it just by ourselves. It was never meant to just be up to us. And this is why Jesus begins where he does. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. This is the very first words of the Sermon on the Mount. Until we realize we can't do it, we're going to fail. Jesus is not saying that poverty is good, but he is saying that that's where the kingdom comes. The poor in spirit are blessed because nothing stands between them and God acting for them. Empty hands may not be impressive, but empty hands can receive. Martin Lloyd-Jones wrote the definitive commentary on the Sermon on the Mount, a preacher. He says that the Sermon on the Mount confronts us with a mountain we cannot climb in our own strength. Any attempt to do so proves that we have not understood it. In other words, this sermon is not a program for self-improvement. It is actually a life we can only receive. So the third way, and I believe the only way, and Jesus believes is the only way, is to hand over control. And if we just have the next slide. So hand over control. The Christian life begins and continues by saying, compared to you, God, I am poor in spirit, I need you. This is not self-hatred, it's just honesty. It's how we're made. We're made to have to need God, to be dependent on him. That is how we're made. And once we admit our poverty of spirit, we discover that God meets us there with his Spirit. St. Paul is a great example of this. He was an amazing man. He says this, if anyone has reasons to put confidence in the flesh, I have more. Circumcised on the 8th day of the people of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, in regard to the law, a Pharisee, as for zeal, persecuting the church, as for righteousness based on the law, faultless. But whatever were gains to me, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. Paul realized he was like the top 1% of the top 1%. But he needed God. He absolutely needed God. He was entirely dependent on God, on Jesus. And once he realized that, God could use him powerfully to spread the Christian message across the whole known Roman world at the time. There's a handing over control. And once we do that, once we say, Jesus, I am poor in spirit, the kingdom of heaven comes. God draws near to us. And so if you're not a Christian here this morning, or maybe you've come and you're like, I'm kind of checking out Christianity. It's a new year. Let's see what happens. I just want to say to you that to become a Christian is to say, I need you, Jesus. I need you. I've been trying to do life on my own or my own way, trying harder, just doing the routines, the resolutions, the everything. But actually, I want to do life with you, not just by myself. And then for those of us who've been Christians for eons, I'd say this, the way in is the way on. What I mean by that, the way we came into Christianity was by saying what I just said to the person sitting here, which is, God, I need you. I need you. And yet, I'm a Christian, but I've started to act as if I can do this without you. And today is a day of coming back at the beginning of this new year and saying, I want to be God dependent this year. Because when I acknowledge my bankruptcy of spirit, you fill up the bank account. And so we all love, well, I do anyway, a practical application. And so up on the screen, we're going to have our prescription for the new year. And I've even got a little NHS prescription thing here. I'm quite pleased with this. The first is really simple. It's to roll out of bed in the morning and to just admit that we can't do it alone. We're poor in spirit, that even our best efforts and thinking have so often failed us. And without Jesus, we can't do it. So, Lord, I can't do it. Morning, can't do it. I need you. Next, B, believe he can, because he has. He's lived for us, he's died for us, he's saved us from our sin, he's risen again, and he is our Savior, he's our overcomer in all areas of life where we simply can't do it. And we kind of then go, Father, you've done it, you can do it, I need you. And then the C is to hand over control. Hand over control of your life. I've got this meeting today, I've got several other things that I can't remember because I've just woken up. I'm going to hand over control of those to you. I need you. Have your way in those meetings. I don't actually have to navigate and be defining every last bit of them. Come and have your way in them. Maybe actually, God, you've got a better way in those. So today, this isn't another resolution. But as we start this Sermon on the Mount series, this is a returning to where the kingdom begins. It begins where we go, can't do it. I can't do it. I need you, Lord. And that's our daily prescription. And when we do this, Jesus says to us, blessed are you, for yours is the kingdom of heaven. Amen.